Welcome to Breaking the Chain, brought to you by Impel Talent. I'm Nathaniel Chapman.
And I'm Terentia.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome, Terentia.
Thanks.
We are today really excited to be tackling one of today's biggest challenges facing professionals, and that's how not to be left behind in this AI revolution. With AI, and we're hearing this a lot in the market, on LinkedIn, in your day-to-day, on the news, it's transforming industries at just lightning speed. And more workers are experiencing a new word, which I've only found out recently, not FOMO, but FOBO, fear of being obsolete. And in fact, in a recent Gallup survey, it shows that 22% of professionals are now worried about losing their jobs to AI. And that's up from 15% from just a few years ago, T. But here's the thing, AI isn't just about automation, it's about augmentation. And companies that invest in training their employees, like major law firms and global enterprises, are already proving that AI can enhance careers rather than replace them. So today, T and I absolutely wanted to touch more on this as a topic. We certainly witnessed it in a few of the events that we went to last year. But how can you stay ahead? How can you prepare for what we're going to go through in the future? And this episode is really for candidates that we've worked with, delegates that have been through our system. But really, how do you make sure that you aren't left behind with a lot of the input and rapid advancements being made in artificial intelligence? So there's going to be three things we'll cover today. The first is calm down. We've seen this before. It's been through our history. Human beings have been through massive levels of technological advancement. So we're going to review those and summarize those and hopefully put your mind at ease a little. We're going to discuss how AI has already started to impact businesses today. And there are companies trying to focus on a people-centric approach to their strategy. But more importantly, and finally, I think at the end of this episode, T and I want to give you some practical steps. Though when you walk away, how can you ensure that AI is working for you, not against you? So I'm really excited for today's episode. Terentia, what do you think? This is obviously a topic that we've had hearty conversations over the last few years, but what's your impressions?
Yeah, thanks. And welcome to all our listeners. We were really looking forward to chatting about this today because I think last year at our leadership event, Andy Pardo spoke a lot around the AI, and I think it opened up our eyes to a whole nother world, which we maybe haven't seen it from that perspective. He pulled back the curtain a bit. I think, a lot of the leaders that were in the room came up to us and spoke to us and said, wow, there are things I don't know. I don't even know what I don't know, which I think brings us to that fear. And I think we need to talk about that fear and really get that out there, because when we talk about it and also realize that we are not alone in having this fear, because I think sometimes people feel that I should know. I cannot ask anyone else because they probably know more than I do, and I'm going to come across as incompetent or stupid or whatever the case may be. And so you think you are the only one that is being left behind. But in actual fact, there are others around you feeling exactly the same way. So this is why we are talking about this topic today, is because we actually want you all to start talking about this topic with each other and normalize it. Ask the questions. There's no stupid questions. That I always say the only stupid question is the one that's not asked, right? Because you'll never get an answer. So hopefully, as we chat about this topic today, it's going to open up conversation for you in your world that, during coffee breaks or in between meetings, you're able to have this sort of conversation with your colleagues.
When I think it was so interesting. We were at the HR Unleashed conference in Paris. We were displaying there, and I was so interested to see that I think AI is such a buzzword. It's being included in all these different programs and systems that have historically been reserved for people-to-people interaction. And we certainly are aware that there's a lot that can be implemented from AI, but it was very interesting and hearty debate while we were at the conference, because obviously at Impel, we focus a lot more on one-to-one interaction, group-based sessions, and peer-to-peer learning. And I don't think those things can be replaced. And we are going to talk about that in today's episode. What is realistically the areas that you should really focus on, to be prepared for this next step. But maybe let's take a step back, Terentia, because I
Yes.
think fear sometimes is built through uh, thinking like, oh, we've never been through something like this before, or
Yes.
this is such new territory. And I think as we started to discuss this episode, it's quite encouraging to feel that
Mm.
actually we've gone through
Mm.
this a lot before. The
Yes.
human species has been quite resilient through large amounts of different technology and different change,
Mm.
and people adapted to it. And there have had to be
Agreed.
huge pivots in many cases, but it's not something that is completely brand new to us as a species.
Yeah, I think, when we hear the word change or there's something new, that part of the brain gets lit up. Where, if you were standing in front of a lion or a snake or some form of danger, it's exactly the same part of the brain that actually lights up when we hear the word change or there's something new ahead, because it's the unknown, right? It's the uncertainty that we fear because we don't know what this is about, what would be the potential impact. And so our brains start thinking of the worst case scenarios, I think. And so we think, that FOBO really, that's going to stick in my head now, the fear of becoming obsolete. Why are we fearing that? Are we seeing all these, sci-fi movies and thinking, there's going to be no need for humans anymore? But we want to talk about that today as well. Like, what can we be doing that the robots, the machines can't do? And I think that's the important part for us to be able to then redirect those thoughts into what is in our control, and what can we get better at and better skilled at.
Yeah, and being able to take action, because I think fear,
Absolutely.
a common response to fear is to freeze, right? Deer in the headlights,
Mhm.
panic. What's the next stage? But actually, you need to use this as a bit of an energizer and a motivator to drive forward, because there have been several technological revolutions where people have experienced this separately. I mean, if we go back to the first industrial revolution, goodness, I know I'm taking us back a long time, and that's more of my
Yes.
passion, as he knows. But in the
Yeah.
late 1700s through the 1900s, mechanization of equipment, labor, steam engines, locomotives,
Yeah.
railroads
Yeah.
totally changed the working environment for the average
Yeah.
person. And
Yeah.
lots of manual laborers, artisans were replaced by factory machines,
Mm.
leading to job losses on a scale that had just not been seen throughout our history, and major social upheavals and movements. And without going too far
Yeah.
into it, socioeconomic changes and
Mm.
um, and
Mm.
and socialism and different pushes. But
Mm. Mm.
people adapted. People had to move from farms and craft-based work jobs, and vocational training became more important, right? And we saw that change. It then happened again during the second industrial revolution from the 1800s to the 1900s, which was the introduction of electricity, assembly lines, mass production, particularly industries that me and T are interested in,
Mhm.
and where we've come from, supply chain.
Yes.
Um, and that brings you back to the thought of like Henry Ford and building the automotive in the early 1900s, the assembly lines, where those devices were built by hand before,
Mm. Mm.
and we've seen that through continuous improvements and clients that we've gotten to work with. OneWeb
Yes.
Satellites was so cool because they developed mass production for satellites. Satellites used to be
Yeah.
individually built piece by piece, and they looked at building it in a similar fashion. And this also, when we had that second industrial revolution and that drive towards Toyota principles and things like that, people moved from craftsman to production, um,
Mm.
and processes became standard and repetitive, and you didn't need to be as highly trained and skilled
Mm.
because you were a
Mm.
piece in the mind of a cog, and it led to massive industrial labor, urban migration, labor unions, and advocates for workers' right. Again, just complete change from being a tradesman to maybe a person in a factory, right?
Absolutely.
And that led, and then without getting too much into a big history lesson, but that led into things like the computer revolution. That
Mm.
also spurned lots of fear within people, right? Where computers came in for largely mechanical or normal processes, and all of a sudden you needed typists, bookkeepers,
Mm.
factory workers. Jobs were replaced by early computing systems, robotic automation. Those people would have been felt the same way you probably feel
Yes.
now with
Yeah.
AI being integrated. And the adaptation there, and this was from the 1950s to the 1980s, roles of IT popped up that never
Yes.
existed before. Programming, need for digital
Mm.
literacy,
Mm.
um, And the internet revolution, T, and I know that's an area that we've talked about, but the .com era, the .com
Mm,
boom,
mm,
explode. There have been explosions in our ability to do work remotely because of these things. So that have been positive benefits rather than negative benefits completely, right? Wide adoption of personal computers, internet, software automation, explosions of careers in tech, marketing, e-commerce, and remote work were a reality. But
yeah,
that meant old jobs in retail, journalism, travel agencies diminished, right?
yeah,
But things became easier. Life became easier for us. So now when we come up to present day,
mm,
it's important to realize that there's this AI driven automation, machine
mm,
learning, large
mm.
language models, transforming work and decision making and creativity that can be enabled with AI. I hate to tell you that AI helped us assist us in putting some of this episode together to become a producer for us, right?
Yeah.
And someone to support us get our thoughts on paper.
Mm,
Um, but I think one of the things that, and T will talk about this today, and repetitive, routine, and rule based jobs are at risk,
yes.
have heavily been at risk. I've had this conversation of what careers realistically could be automated.
Yeah.
We've obviously seen legal firms really take up a big push to look at AI that could
Yeah.
replace legal analysts and things of that nature. Bookkeeping, for accountancy measures, certainly have things to be worried about if they're not integrating within AI now. Financial analysis, customer service, legal
Mm.
research have been definitely categories if you're working in those fields to be mindful of those tasks. But those weren't exactly tasks you were particularly interested in doing anyway, I hope.
I
Um,
think that's the key as well, right? Really looking at what are those tasks that were really zapping our energy or time or motivation, and to see it from the positive perspective. What can this AI technology bring to us? How can it make us more efficient, release more time for us to be more strategic as opposed to more operational? So I think for me, as you were talking about this evolution, we learn about history in school. It's one of the subjects we get taught. And I think there's so much value in actually going back and putting things in perspective. So that story you've just shared with that evolution, it was not dissimilar to what we are going through now. Change comes, massive change comes, but as the human race, as the human species, we evolve, we adapt. And I think that's the hope we have, of not becoming obsolete, because we as human beings, we assess very quickly, we analyze the situation, and we are able to adapt, without the assistance of the machines telling us what to do, but we can do that using our brains, using our creativity. So I think, yes, there is fear and we should not dismiss it, but I think we need to use the fear to harness our innovation, our creativity, and just and holding on to the hope we have from what our forefathers would have went through in these different stages of the world, and what we are going through now as well.
and the change is just it's just different, right? The rate of change is just so massive, and that I think is also
Yes.
causing people. I mean, we talked last year about, or last episode, about learning new skills. We talked last season about living in a VUCA world. I think the
Yes.
reality is that the technological advancements have just really
Mm,
taken off. So whether going through one of these a century, you might be going
mm.
through one of these every month or
Month.
week, or the
Yes.
exponential growth curve of
Mm,
technological advancement does make things uncomfortable. But I think what's key is that in the short term, it does lead to job displacement, and we shouldn't sugarcoat it. We
yes.
don't like the fear. Andy Perdeau in his presentation to to the delegates at our live leadership event scared everybody with his first few slides, right? Um,
Yes.
but the reality is it has also led to new jobs, new roles, and new
Yes.
opportunities, and that's the positive side to
Mm,
these sort of advancements. And if you embrace the change, if you upskill, if
mm,
you look at problem solving and leadership,
mm.
those are the things that you should start to invest in. And if you do those things, you're not
Yeah.
only you won't be left behind, and actually you can make yourself invaluable in whatever
Yes.
role that you're doing, right?
Yeah. I think that talks to, you're talking about the future proofing your career, your team, your organization. It comes from, what skills do I need to upskill in that the machines can't do?
Yeah.
I think it's asking that question. It's, maybe those skills, again, there's no book that you can just go learn from. You're going to learn as you go. So, we always say build a plane as you fly it, and sometimes it may be the case, because we are learning as we're going. And I think that's part of the fun and challenge that lies ahead of us, is to, and keeping us challenged. I think that's what's going to keep us motivated as well. In
Well,
the coming
I talk to
years.
candidates all the time, and I'm sure you get this from the delegates that you work with, T. But what are your unique selling points? What are the skills that you're generating and gathering to not become obsolete? That's what
Mm-hmm.
companies are looking for. Companies are also in a very tedious position. Like if you look at you as an individual are worried about the implementation of that technology. Companies
Mm-hmm.
are also worried about also becoming obsolete and not embracing this technology. And if you don't
Correct.
realize that your company by moving into this sector is trying also to
Mm-hmm.
survive, it
Mm-hmm.
is a level of you have to adapt and survive in a corporate environment.
Yes.
Realistically, we have to reflect that as people that want to be employed by those businesses.
Mm-hmm.
There's a law firm, VWV, that implemented comprehensive AI strategies centered around engaging in training its employees,
Yeah.
especially trainee solicitors. So,
Yeah.
and they've integrated AI into their legal practices, which have really increased efficiency and improvements
Mm-hmm.
and equip them with more future-proof skills. And actually, they're starting to become more profitable as a result. And
Mm-hmm.
we encountered it at the HR conference we were at. People are using AI
Yes.
for sales training and allowing people to have more of like interview prep, and there's
Yeah.
so many good positive applications which can help you hone your
Mm-hmm.
skills and your experience. So I think we've got to be mindful that organizations are embracing it. You have to be able to embrace it as well.
Yes. Agreed.
So let's get to tips. What can people do? We've talked about that this has happened before. Hopefully filled you with a tiny little bit of fear, not too much fear. But T, what are maybe some ways that you might encourage somebody to go, all right, we've said we need some practical steps. You need to go out and
Yeah.
become better.
Yeah.
Instead of fearing it, how can they leverage it to benefit their career and productivity?
I think the first step is actually asking the people around you. I think a lot of us fear asking because we think we are the only ones that don't know. So I'd say
Mm,
step one is talking to your peers, your colleagues, your managers, even your friends, family, coming people from different sectors. What are they reading? What have they learned about this? What should you be thinking about? I think that conversation needs to happen. I think it's really overwhelming to just say, you know what, go on ChatGPT or go on Copilot and ask it. The information is overwhelming. So I think people struggle with, where do I start? So I'd say your first step is phone a friend, right? And have that conversation. What do you know about it? And spark conversation, because honestly, these are the human skills that we should be continuously developing. That being able to communicate, being able to collaborate, being able to connect with other humans, because together as a human race, we are at our strongest when we are together and doing things together, innovating together, collaborating, and coming up with amazing ideas. So I think we should never move into this individualistic type of thinking where I have all the information, it's on the internet, I can find it. Yes, you can.
mhm.
But it's when you have the conversation about it is where the information gets crystallized in your mind. So for me, that's the first step, is actually have the conversation, which is what we're doing today. And hopefully it encourages you and inspires you to start it in your world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because when you don't understand it, you're again,
Yeah.
that's driving more fear. And if you think you're the one that is the only one not understanding it,
Mm.
and I think you'll find out there are more people in the same boat as you.
Yes.
But I think you have to build awareness. So I would absolutely harp onto that, Terentia, about if you're not utilizing, I mean,
Mm.
ChatGPT is open source and it's free to use. And
Mm.
I really encourage people to get on and start utilizing the platform.
Yeah.
And if you haven't used it yet, you're already behind. And I can already
Mm.
tell people who have just started using it, because the second part to that comment is starting to realize how you should start applying this, because
Yeah.
it isn't a direct copy and chat. You need to understand the capabilities of the platform, and then you
Yes.
need to not let it totally write your post. I don't know if you've seen on LinkedIn, Trench, but people just
Yes.
copy and paste the bold,
Yes.
the format, the
Yeah.
images. You can tell that they
Yeah.
haven't written it,
They
and they're
haven't.
losing authenticity.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's a tool. It's not supposed to replace everything that you do. You should be
Correct.
able to say, you have to know what prompts to give it and how to give it the best
Yeah.
input to give you what you need to make it your
Yeah.
voice and your style and things of that nature. So
Agreed.
first, experiment. Just jump on with ChatGPT for a start,
Mm,
or use some of the more safer co-pilots if within your
mm,
organization. I know
mm,
we've had clients say, look, realistically, it's safer to utilize stuff within the 365 platform. Microsoft
mm,
Copilot has a little
mhm.
less functionality, but certainly you might get away with it a bit more. And see how you can, because otherwise you're just not even familiar with the tool to begin with.
Yes, I completely agree. I think we actually started using it in our leadership coaching team, and we've actually been practicing how to use it because the prompt, and we've tested it, the prompt I use versus the prompt my colleague uses gives us, different information even. It's just the way we ask it. So I think that's a skill in itself to be able to experiment and see the type of language that it's looking for. And I saw a post actually yesterday on LinkedIn where somebody was saying, stop copying and pasting. Even, at least say to it, you want the response in the English that you use. So whether it's US or the UK, because you can see it so clearly if you're using the different spellings even of the words. And so again, you lose that authenticity. So I would say, yes, for sure. Ask a friend, start the conversation, and then experiment with it. Try it, build a skill, because the more you use it, the less fear you have about it. And I think it does go quite deep. You start going into the generative AI. What does that mean? And how is it being integrated and used? When we were doing this topic, I was doing it as a workshop for a client. I actually didn't realize how deep this AI tool has gone and how embedded it is already in our lives. So you may think, I don't know much about it and I'm not using it. You actually are using it and you don't even realize you are. If you've bought something online recently, AI is there, right? So where there's predictive shopping. So if you see there are products that are popping up on your feed for you to purchase that, or on the app when you're buying it, it's because it's remembering your buying patterns and what you normally like. It's making suggestions. And the next time you buy it, it actually asks you, hey, did you forget to buy this because you bought it the last time? So AI is already integrated into our lives. It's also understanding where is it already and how it's being used. So it, again, doesn't feel like something's taking over, but you have the control because you understand where it's being used and how it's being used.
We're not going back. So, there's not going to be,
Yes,
if anything, it's just going to be more embedded in your day to day life than it ever has before. And
absolutely.
I also would encourage, as part of this, building your AI awareness. And there's some great AI focused webinars, conferences, LinkedIn group chats that you can connect with and grow into. I find the community is quite open to people who want to learn more and find out
Mm,
more. And the internet is a great resource. So, for that first piece, and Tina, I've mentioned it here, but build awareness and stay updated, and
yeah.
certainly follow any AI developments that you can in the news, see what sort of new programs and things. It's been a bit fun to follow it anyway. But if you're
Yeah.
experimenting, you're aware of what's happening, you'll also feel better because you're not like, it's not going to catch you completely by surprise.
Agreed. Agreed.
The second point I would also is start to understand what role AI could play in your industry specifically. So,
Yes.
we've been mentioning a few different career paths. You have to take the lessons and start to think. I've certainly, and T and I both think about this for each of our areas. For recruitment and executive search, I'm constantly like, where could AI save us money, and where is it suit for purpose, and where is it not suitable, um,
Right.
and what tasks could easily be taken off the desk of my executive recruiters that will allow them to spend more time with clients, or with candidates and be on the phone. So if I know that that could be implemented, it's probably you should be making some of those assumptions yourself. And as T was mentioning, if you're having conversations with colleagues or your boss or people in your industry,
Mm,
you're going to get a good feeling as to what prompts or what, tools you could use to make sure that you're
yeah.
staying up to speed for your specific. How is it being applied to your profession?
Yeah, I agree. I think again, it's it's making sure that you are bringing something, you integrating to your world, so it adds value. I
Mm,
think at the end of the day, it comes back to what's the value behind it. because if you don't see it and you can't make the connection, it's going to be really hard for you to implement. So I think it's, again, understanding what's the value it can bring, and what's the problem you are trying to solve.
Yeah.
What's the problem you couldn't solve before without AI that now with it can actually help you and accelerate that solution? So I think it comes back to the value, right? Why?
Yeah.
It's not for the sake of it, just because everyone's doing it, but what's the value behind it?
Yeah, you need a goal. Again, we're tying into our previous episode. What are you trying to achieve? And then you can reverse engineer what you want to get out of it. And because there are lots of resources available. You can go to Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, that can help you with prompt engineering. A lot of it is trial and error, in that automation. And you need to get comfortable with utilizing that data so that you can see what tasks that you could potentially implement to increase your productivity. You were just mentioning it too. I think human beings are a lot more aware. ChatGPT still doesn't decipher, what it puts together for you or for someone else using a basic version of ChatGPT can sometimes have the same writing style or formula. And that's why it's so easy to pick out. And as soon as I see that a post has been done that way, or I had an email sent to me yesterday, I was like, thank you for the ChatGPT email, immediately lost credibility. It's the same thing when I get mass emails from business development contacts that I know are the same email that's been sent to multiple people. I'm less likely to want to engage with you. I don't mind if you've used ChatGPT to help with your message. One great tool, which I saw in practice this week, use ChatGPT to give you feedback. I was writing a
So
pretty
good.
critical email, and I said, "How would you make this softer?" Especially
Great.
if you're pissed off or upset in a situation and you put an email together. I've loved using some of the AI tools to just get someone to give me some immediate feedback on, and I love, because sometimes it goes, well, I would maybe lower this tone or change this dynamic. And you might say, well, how do I make this more approachable? How do I make this so that we're trying to reach resolution? Because sometimes your emotions are embedded in a lot of the work that you do. Luckily, AI doesn't have those and doesn't have come with pre-existing notions.
Yes.
So, obviously you need to stay being yourself, because people see the shortcuts. And that's my advice. Don't, anytime human beings can see you've taken a shortcut, it doesn't hit home. But it does feel great when you're like, this really hits all the points that I'm looking for. And it's obviously come from our notes. And then people don't care how it's written.
Yeah.
But when we see those posts with the emojis and the bolded text mid thing, and I'm like, nobody writes like that. ChatGPT writes that way.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think we can all spot that a mile away, and let's not lose our authentic selves in the process.
And remember, you can't develop human-centric AI, so not yet anyway. It'll be a scary day when, and I've said this to my team, right? Like, even the stuff that we've experimented with at the HR conference and stuff, people are not keen on doing an interview with an AI robot, and people are not keen on having their one-to-ones done that way or collaboration. So think about what you need to strengthen that adds the positive part to your role. Is it critical thinking, leadership, emotional intelligence, creativity? Those still remain AI-proof skill sets for now.
Absolutely.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I agree. And I'd say we are still seeing that in the work that we do, the value of it. So we focus a lot on the emotional intelligence, really understanding self-awareness, the self-management, your social awareness, your relationship management. Those things don't go away, right? Because we're still working with humans. The critical thinking, the creativity, all of that's linked to innovation and the ideas that we are still coming up with. The machines do what we tell them to do. I think we should never forget that. Yes, there's machine learning and all of those things, but we ultimately still write the programs and the code for what the AI is generating. So I think for me, it's the lesson is not to forget the human elements, the things that make us human, the skills that maybe we didn't pay as much attention to previously because we took it for granted. But right now, that spotlight needs to be there, that emotional intelligence, the creativity, the critical thinking. How are you developing that? How are you developing those skills? Are you asking for support on those skills? Are you actively and intentionally working on them? And building that in a structured way so that you are advancing in your levels from basic to intermediate to advanced on those different areas. So I'd say really analyze what are those human skills that's needed for your role. So you actually will not become obsolete because you are working on skills that can never become obsolete as a human being. So whether you are transitioning roles, moving to different companies, different sectors, those human skills will never become obsolete.
Yeah, and you need to understand your own strengths and weaknesses, right? Because we can preach all day that we know that emotional intelligence is one of the fastest things that have been on the rise and buzz topics. It's why we focus a whole coaching division on it here at Impel. But collaboration and communication and complex problem solving is where human intuition is key.
Yes.
And you need human intuition. Um, you need people to be able to read the room. Build relationships. We've talked about the cultural element of managing people from different locations. Big part of the coaching programs we do on an international level.
Yes.
Understanding and having empathy for people. Those things are not something that a machine is very literal, data
Yeah.
driven, and that's a
Yes.
lie. That a lot of those tasks will be really key to be replaced. But if that's not your strong suit, because I always think everyone goes, "Oh, well, learn all these skills." Some people are
Mm.
not. Some people are. I know
Mm.
you're the introverted leader, but some people are introverted,
Mm.
enjoy their job of what they do, whether it's in accounting or,
Mm.
um, in a technical role. Then you need to look at what are the things that I need to do to become an expert in this technology, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's always going to need to be the person overseeing and implementing it.
Yeah.
Automation was the same, going back to history
Mm.
and industry
Mm.
4.0, right?
Mm.
Manufacturing technicians that went and learned code,
Yeah.
went and learned the PCSs and the DCSs and the management execution systems. They became invaluable. In fact, actually, their earning potential went through the roof.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those that didn't and just hoped that they'd get taken care of, we've seen that in history for a lot of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think my key takeaway is um, embracing the fear. Use the fear to drive my learning in this area,
Mm,
and really, keep having the conversation, asking friends, what did you learn this week that I could
yeah.
learn? What can I share this that I've learned this week? And I'd say if we're learning in these bite-sized learnings, it does not feel overwhelming. So for me, I feel this conversation even just inspired me to continue talking about it with the people around me, that's relevant to the field we are in, the sector we are in, so that again we are learning fit for purpose tools, right? And applying as we go, because it's learn and apply, then you see the value. So that's
Yeah.
my key
I love
takeaway.
that thought. I love that massive takeaway. I would say I've got two things that I would leave listeners with. The first is to remember that this is just a tool and you need to be asking it for sources. You need to use AI ethically, I think, and responsibly. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is don't take everything at face value. I've definitely used prompts and
mm,
inputs and gotten data. And then I've asked where the data's come from. And it's some lady's blog or a person's blog, right? And I'm like, um, there's no really good cited sources here. So
mm,
that's where research doesn't abandon. You can't just, I
mm.
guess what I'm getting at is don't be lazy. Don't just
Yes.
use AI lazily. You have to be, if you want to
Mm,
use it properly, engage it to help you with brainstorming and creativity because it can gather a lot of resources from a lot of different elements and it can summarize simply. But
yeah.
don't get lazy. Look into the detail. Come back where those
Mm,
sources have come from. Fact check your AI. We are
mm.
knowing that that is a big topic in how is
Yes.
it being managed ethically. What
Mm,
ideas or things could be pushed to us in the future because we're not sure what's on the back
mm.
end. It's like this fugazi, scary mythical creature that just pumps out information. It comes from somewhere, so you have to be
Yes.
relevant. And my
Yes.
and my last piece is just remember that you want to be augmented, right? Not
Mm,
replaced, augmented.
mm.
And I don't want to say AI won't take your job because if you do nothing, AI will take your job. If someone
Yeah.
can prove that they can do something more efficient, quicker,
Mm,
you have to be
mm,
ready for the fact that that could be
mm.
your job gone. But someone
Yeah.
who knows how to use AI or is already
Mm,
looking at how it can be implemented, maybe having conversations in the office about it, already maybe being on the front foot of how AI could be introduced into their business, taking
yeah.
responsibility for some of those things, that person is key and
Agreed.
you'll work smarter, not harder. So
Great.
learn, experiment, stay ahead. If you do those things, you
Love
should be
it.
fine.
Love it. Love
If
it.
history has anything to tell us, you'll be all right. You'll be good.
Good. Well, it was lovely to chat with you, Nate, on the topic, and I hope you all enjoyed listening to our conversation and it's inspired you to go and have the conversation in your world. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Absolutely. Sorry we didn't have any stories today, but we actually really enjoyed wanting to really open up this episode and talk around this topic. You can still email us at info@impeltalent in case you have any stories that you'd like to share. Are there any topics that you're interested in? We are also opening up to having guests, and we'd like to introduce some debate episodes in the coming episodes. If you're interested in being a guest, also email us at info@impeltalent.com. And we look forward to welcoming you back next week.
Hey, thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, TuneIn, or even on our website at www.breakingthechain.online.